Imagine you're Florence Ballard, the founding voice of the Supremes, the woman who had the world swooning to baby love. You're standing on the Copacabana stage, lights blazing, the crowd roaring. But just a few years later, you're pushed out of the group, lose your home, lose everything, and die alone at 32. What turned a star into a victim of the music industry? A fateful night at 17, a knife in a parking lot, planted the seeds of trauma. A friend once said Florence would twist the blinds, staring out the window in the dead of night, as if someone was watching. A secret tape, according to the Daily Mail in 2008, captured her whispering. Was it the pain of a broken heart, or a hint of something more sinister? Step into Florence's story, from the spotlight to the shadows, from dreams to despair, to find the answer. Who silenced that voice forever? Chapter 1. A teenage assault that shattered Florence Ballard. Little Florence Ballard dreamed of standing on a stage, her voice shining like a light to chase away the darkness. But on one fateful night at 17, the only light she saw was the glint of a knife in an empty parking lot. That moment changed everything, turning a hopeful young girl into a fragile soul, ripe for the picking by a ruthless music industry. Detroit in the 1940s wasn't an easy place to grow up. The Brewster Douglas projects, where Florence was raised, were cold public housing blocks, filled with the damp smell of mildew and the sound of kids playing in the hallways. Born on June 30th, 1943, Florence was the 8th or 9th child in a big family, crammed into a tiny apartment. Her dad, Jesse, worked long hours at General Motors, but cancer took him when Florence was just 15, leaving her mom, Lurley, to struggle raising a house full of kids. In that poverty, Florence found joy in music. She sang in the church choir, her voice soaring like a hymn, described by friends as touching your heart. But in 1960, one night at the Greystone Ballroom shattered her world. After a dance, Florence got separated from her brother Billy. Reggie Harding, a local basketball player, flashed a friendly smile as he opened his car door. Florence hesitated but thought she knew him from school. The parking lot was pitch black, with only the sound of tires rolling slowly on asphalt. Then a cold metal knife pressed against her throat. Time seemed to stop. Reggie's breathing was heavy, Florence's eyes frozen in fear. Harding raped her, leaving a wound that never healed. She locked herself in her room for weeks, only confiding in her Supremes bandmates months later. A friend said Florence grew terrified of strangers, often twisting the blinds when changing, sometimes staring out the window at night, as if waiting for something dreadful. But another Supreme said Florence never spoke of it, as if trying to erase the memory. Was she hiding her pain or something bigger? After that night, Florence stopped believing in safety. In a city riddled with injustice and racial divides, she carried that trauma, never imagining it would make her an easy target for powerful people later on. Florence sang with the faith of a child seeking refuge, but that faith and the unhealed wound might have made her the perfect prey for Motown. If so, who really held the knife? Chapter 2. Skyrocketing fame but left in the shadows. They stood center stage at the Copacabana, lights beaming down on three women: Florence Ballard, Mary Wilson, and Diana Ross. But only one name drew the crowd's cheers. That was the moment Florence realized even the spotlight can cast a shadow. In 1964, the Supremes, the group Florence founded, shot to global stardom. But in that glow, Florence felt her own light fading. as if Motown was quietly pushing her aside to let Diana Ross shine. Motown studios in the 1960s were a whirlwind. The air smelled of cigarette smoke mixed with the hum of reel-to-reel tapes. Florence, Mary, and Diana sat close, recording Where Did Our Love Go?, the hit that launched the Supremes to the top. Florence's voice, powerful as a gospel hymn, was the soul of 16 top 40 hits, from Baby Love to Stop in the Name of Love. Otis Williams of The Temptations once said, "Flo's voice reached right into your heart." In glittering gowns, the Supremes performed for cheering crowds at the Copacabana, even royalty, breaking racial barriers for black women in a divided America. But that light wasn't for everyone. In 1965, People, a song about loneliness and longing, was perfect for Florence's soulful, deep voice. She recorded a demo, her singing like a heartfelt confession. But when the record came out, Diana Ross's name was front and center. Florence wasn't even told. She stood in the studio, clutching the lyrics, the yellow glow of the lights on her face. That day, there was no part for her. Laughter from colleagues echoed, but Florence pressed her lips together, quietly turning to the hallway where no one noticed. An old Motown producer said, "Everyone in the studio knew who was best, but a sound technician told a different story." Florence was never given a chance to re-record. Was someone hiding something? Berry Gordy, Motown's boss, decided to make Diana Ross the lead, a choice many believed was because Ross appealed more to white audiences. On Quora, fans speculated Ross was jealous of Florence's powerful voice, and Gordy, close to Ross, wanted her to be the sole star. Florence once whispered to Mary Wilson, "Motown wants me in the background forever." In the dim studio hallways, among the Supremes posters, Florence felt a growing loneliness, as if the spotlight was slipping away. Did Motown plan to push Florence out early to make room for Diana Ross? If so, the next question is, who helped them do it? And how did Florence fight back? Chapter 3. Betrayed and stripped of her creation. In the summer of 1967, in a meeting room at Berry Gordy's Detroit home, Florence Ballard heard the sharp click of high heels on the wooden floor. She turned, her heart pounding. Cindy Birdsong walked in, wearing the glittering dress Florence had worn for the Supremes' first show. No one spoke. Gordy stared out the window, sunlight glinting off his cold face. Florence broke down, not from shock, but because she knew this moment had been planned long before. Like a secret trial, she, the founder of the Supremes, was sentenced to be erased without a chance to defend herself. No clear contract, no lawyer to protect her. Florence lost control of the group she'd built from her Detroit dreams. Motown claimed Florence was fired for missing shows and drinking too much. But a lighting technician told a different story. Some nights, she showed up early, dressed to the nines, but wasn't allowed on stage. Was Florence set up to give them an excuse to fire her? While she was still performing, Cindy Birdsong was secretly rehearsing "You Keep Me Hanging On" with the backup band in a small studio a few blocks away. The manager called it a backup plan, but Florence had no idea she was being replaced step by step. On Quora, fans speculated that Berry Gordy and Diana Ross planned since April 1967 to push Florence out, ensuring Ross was the only star. She started drinking more to numb the pain of betrayal. Her uneven performances, her empty gaze, were signs of a broken heart. Mary Wilson wrote that Florence felt deceived by Ross and Gordy, once her friends. During a rehearsal, Amid the halting notes of a piano, Florence whispered to Mary, "I know more than they think." Her hands trembled, as if holding a dangerous secret. Mary asked, "What is it?" But Florence just shook her head, her eyes distant. "No one would believe me." Her words were cut off when a Motown staffer called her out of the room. What made Florence stay silent? Did she know something about how Motown worked? Or was it just the pain of being abandoned? With no legal protection, Florence faced a ruthless industry alone. She left Motown with pennies in her pocket, carrying the sting of betrayal from those who'd promised to conquer the world with her. In the now empty meeting room, Florence glanced at the Supremes posters on the wall, her image fading beside Diana Ross's bright smile. She lost her group, her role, her friends, and then she started losing herself. But was this her downfall, or the goal of a bigger plan? Chapter 4: A Star's Complete Collapse. Florence Ballard twisted the dial on the radio in her small Detroit apartment, a dim bulb casting light on her face. "Baby Love" played, the Supremes' voices, her voice, or what used to be hers, filling the room. She reached for the bottle on the table, her hand trembling. Outside, Detroit was cold and foggy, as if the city had turned its back on her too. After being forced out of the Supremes, Florence tried to start over with a contract at ABC Records. But her single, "Love Ain't Love," got no promotion, and her album was shelved, gathering dust in a warehouse. A Chicago DJ said, "I played Love Ain't Love once. The next day, I lost my prime slot." No one said Motown was behind it, but the consequences spoke volumes. In 1971, Florence walked into a courtroom, clutching a thin stack of papers. No lawyer, no allies. Across the room, Motown's representatives just smiled, their eyes cold. When the judge dismissed her lawsuit for royalties, Florence stood, her worn shoes clicking on the wooden floor. No one looked at her. She'd hoped justice would restore what was stolen, but the music industry gave her no chance. Worse, her lawyer was accused of pocketing the little settlement she got, leaving her with nothing. Her beloved home was foreclosed, forcing her to move in with her sister Maxine and apply for welfare. The media was merciless, calling her a failed star, each article like a knife to her pride. The 1960 rape still haunted her. On a tour, Florence confided in Gladys Horton of the Marvelettes about her fear, her voice trembling like she might cry. She drank to forget, but each sip only pulled her deeper into self-blame. A reporter once planned an article titled "The Voice They Silenced" about Florence, but it vanished from the paper within a week. No one kept a copy. Was someone stopping her story from being told? Florence looked in the mirror, seeing a shadow of the star who once captivated crowds. A friend recalled her saying, "I feel cursed by what Motown did." In her cold apartment, among family photos and old records, Florence wondered if she deserved to be forgotten. She'd lost her group, her role, herself. But if Florence was just self-destructing, why did every door close at once? Why did no one hear what she had to say? Chapter 5: Final Efforts and a Tragic End. Backstage at the Henry and Edsel Ford Theater in June 1975, Florence Ballard gripped the microphone, her palms sweaty. It had been 10 years since her last spotlight with the Supremes. She didn't know if the audience beyond the red curtain still remembered her. Her heartbeat drowned out the stagehand's whispers. But when the first notes of "I Am Woman" rang out, Florence's steps were guided by a distant memory. She walked out, the bright lights hitting her simple dress. and her powerful church-born voice brought the crowd to their feet, clapping endlessly. She closed with "Come See About Me," a Supremes hit, as if declaring, "Florence Ballard hasn't been forgotten." After years in the dark, Florence started seeing light. She completed rehab at Henry Ford Hospital, bought a small house on Shaftesbury Avenue, and felt hope for the first time. On the David Dials show, she sat tall, smiling brightly, sharing her past with optimism, as if ready to rewrite her story. A touching detail: Florence sent a postcard to a fan named Randy, thanking him for support and mentioning a call with Diana Ross. She wasn't so bad. For the first time in years, she softened, as if forgiving old wounds. But sometimes, forgiveness comes just before a storm. Weeks earlier, Florence whispered to her sister Maxine, "Something feels wrong. Like, something's waiting for me out there." Those words now sound like a chilling prophecy. Just as Florence began believing in a new chapter, fate pulled the curtain down. On February 21st, 1976, a sudden shortness of breath sent her to Mount Carmel Mercy Hospital. A day later, she was gone at 32, leaving fans and family stunned. Revival, for Florence, seemed just a fleeting dream. In her new home, among family photos and old records, she'd tried to rise again, but that final spotlight was a cruel illusion. Did Florence sense her fate, or was an invisible hand stopping her comeback? Chapter 6: The Mystery of a Death at 32. At 6 in the morning, cold fluorescent light fell on bed number 3 at Mount Carmel Mercy Hospital in Detroit. Florence Ballard took her last breath. No family by her side, no candles, just the long beep of a monitor fading out. On February 22nd, 1976, at 32, the founding voice of the Supremes was gone, leaving an unsolved mystery. Doctors said she died of a coronary artery thrombosis, a blood clot causing heart failure. But her sister Maxine didn't buy the medical report. She said, "I saw something in the sink by her bed. It was like powder, grayish brown, with a metallic smell." Strangely, that detail never made it into the medical records, as if someone erased a clue. A friend recalled their last meeting, Florence gripping her hand, eyes frantic, whispering, "If I disappear one day, don't trust the hospital. Ask Motown." Those words, like a prophecy, fueled theories. On Quora, fans speculated Motown or her husband, Thomas Chapman, were involved, though toxicology reports ruled out an overdose. A 2008 Daily Mail article mentioned a secret tape where Florence voiced fears for her safety. Maxine confronted an unnamed suspect and even considered exhuming her sister's body. But no answers came. Florence passed in a sterile hospital room, the sharp smell of disinfectant in the air. Outside, a food cart rolled by, wheels clattering, unaware that one of America's greatest voices had gone silent. No contract to protect her, no lawyer to fight for her. Florence was easy prey for a brutal industry. Was her death just an accident, or the result of a music industry plot? Did Motown truly want her silenced forever? Epilogue: a legacy and lingering questions. From small Paris cafes to Las Vegas stages, the Supremes' music still plays. But in those melodies, Florence Ballard's voice echoes softer, like a bell ringing from a forgotten place. She was the soul of hits like Baby Love and You Keep Me Hanging On, a pioneer breaking racial barriers for Black women in music. Her tragic story inspired Dreamgirls, with Effie White mirroring her pain of being sidelined. When Jennifer Hudson stood on the Oscar stage in 2006, Holding her award, she said, "I give this to Florence Ballard, who never got a fair shot." The room fell silent. Florence was heard, but too late. She was honored in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988, and in 2021, a headstone was dedicated on her birthday. But Florence's legacy isn't just music. She's a warning about a ruthless music industry where artists, especially Black women, can be exploited without legal protection. The 1960 rape, Motown's Betrayal, and her death at 32 reveal a system unforgiving to those who don't play by its rules. Florence's lesson is clear. We need to support mental health, protect artists' rights, and honor everyone's contributions, not just the chosen stars. So, what really happened to Florence Ballard? Was she pushed out of the Supremes and left to die in despair because of a Motown plot, as Maxine hinted? The clues, the secret tape, her whisper to "Ask Motown," the grayish-brown powder, are they truth or just products of pain and suspicion? Florence once said she felt cursed. Maybe she wasn't just battling addiction and depression, but a system ready to crush anyone who dared resist. We may never know, but every time Baby Love plays, remember, behind those notes is a woman who screamed in silence.